Hello, Urban Faith. It is so good to be with you again today. We are excited to have uh, a, a legend, really, in social justice, in the Black church, in the work that's done to continue to uplift our people. We are here with the Reverend Dr. Frederick D. Haynes III from Dallas, Texas, the senior pastor of Friendship West Baptist Church. And he and the church have been doing amazing work this year commemorating the 100 years since the Tulsa Black Race Massacre, as well as the Black Wall Streets bombing. And so we want to talk about his initiative, 100 by Black, that Friendship West has. And we're so good to have you. So glad to have you, Dr. Haynes, here with us today to talk about it.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. I appreciate so much your work. And of course, UrbanFaith is a gift to our community because you understand the importance of flushing out of our system white Jesus so that we can worship and work for the right Jesus. So I
Yeah.
appreciate your work and all that you're doing.
Absolutely. And so the first question I have for you is just simply, what is this 100 Days by Black initiative that you and Friendship West have undertaken over the course of this year?
Thank you very much for that. Of course, earlier this year, our nation finally commemorated the catastrophe, the massacre that took place 100 years ago when that thriving Black business community known as Greenwood, that Booker T. Washington came to visit because he had heard so much about it. And upon leaving, he said, I'm just witnessing Black Wall Street, because again, their own hospitals, their own theaters, their own entertainment venues, they built up a community that was the envy of so many that it became a target for white supremacy and its destruction. And so we noticed, okay, there's a lot going on to commemorate, to pay tribute to what was done by those brilliant Black people who came together the way they did, forced, as it were, by legalized oppression of Jim and Jane Crow segregation because of Plessy versus Ferguson and the backlash to emancipation and Reconstruction. And Black folk in Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma said, well, if you don't want us to have a seat at your table, we're going to build our own table with our own material, and it's going to be so soulful and beautiful that you're going to want to come and be a part of that. And so they did that back then. We celebrated that. But our thing was, if all we do is commemorate it and we don't step up and continue it, then we basically have engaged in empty acts of symbolism. And this nation could care less if we have symbolism. But when it comes to a substantive response, our substantive response was, okay, well, what we need to do is replicate what took place back then and honor those who were killed, honor those pioneers, those economic pioneers, by building our own economic infrastructure, building our own Black businesses. And so we, now Friendship West, I'll just be honest, we ain't new to this, we're true to this. We have always tried to spotlight Black businesses, and we've ensured that even our church, we are not going to build a facility, and we've built several since I've been there, without Black contractors. We wanted to make sure that Black people get paid because we know, as the old video said, where the money resides. And so given that, we have done what we call West Wall Street. That is a brainchild of my daughter, Albany Jewel Haynes, Howard graduate.
That's right.
Albany Jewel came up with West Wall Street, where for the last 5 years, several times a year, we convert our narthex, some folk call it a lobby, we convert it into a mall, and some 50 to 60 Black businesses in between and after services, they basically are there, and it's a mall so that our people can support Black businesses. And it's been so successful, wildly successful, that some businesses that began, for example, Two Sisters is one of our favorite examples. They bake like crazy. They do the thing that Black folk do.
Hmm.
And they started doing West Wall Street, and in a few days, they're opening up their own storefront right around the corner from the church, where they're going to be employing people, because they've gone from just an idea where their talents were used to converting that into a business that's going to employ people and serve the community. So that's what we have done, and that's what we continue to do. And so our pastor of social justice, Pastor Ayers, she said, well, why don't we come up with 100 days of buying Black? And at the end of September through December 31st, we, for 100 days, register the money that we've spent with Black-owned businesses. Share that on the website, on friendshipwest.org. Go to 100 Days of Buying Black. We register that, but the main thing is we're trying to develop economic habits of supporting Black businesses, because if we're not careful, it's real easy to, when we go eat lunch, we go eat in an establishment owned by other people. Going shopping for Christmas, we shop in malls that have not one Black business. And so we're trying to reset our economic habits, because the whole concept of 100 days, we're not going to stop buying Black on December 31st. The idea is, for 100 days, I've been buying Black, so I'm going to do it for 103 days, 200 days, 400 days. I'm going to do it for the rest of my life, because I'm trying to reset. We're trying to recreate, reset our economic habits. And so that's the gist of 100 Days of Buying Black. And I just trust and pray that we will all grab that vision and support our Black businesses.
I just love how not only practical, but how thorough it is that you're planning on doing this in a way that really creates change and is a catalyst in of itself. One of the things that I know about your ministry and about Friendship West, like you said, is that this is not new to you all. You guys have been doing this kind of work as a church from the beginning, for years and years. But a lot of churches out there, especially I'm thinking about so many in our audience, they may say, well, what does church have to do with these economics? Why is it that a church in particular, big nonprofit, would choose to engage in this way with businesses, these for-profit entities? Can you talk a little bit about why it's important for the Black church to do this kind of work?
Right. Well, biblically, we have to remember that both the synagogue and the temple, they weren't just the spiritual centers of the faith community. They were the economic and political centers of the faith community. And I know a lot of times people are going to talk about, well, Jesus turned out the money changers in the temple. Again, he turned out those who were economically exploiting, those who were impoverished. And so, but he recognized that the temple was a part of the economic infrastructure of Jerusalem. It was the synagogue was a part of the economic infrastructure of various Jewish communities. And so what we've got to keep in mind is that not only is it biblical, but the Black community, that's what we've done. The Black church was not born just, shouting hallelujah on Sundays. The Black church was engaged in do-ya-luya throughout the week. And so by that, I mean, how did we learn to read? We learned to read, and this is history. We learned to read by going to Sunday school. And there we were taught how to read by reading the Bible. It had nothing to do with, okay, you read a verse and tell me what it means to you. No, we read so that we could practically learn how to be a part of this American democracy. And the best way to do that, as Frederick Douglass said, knowledge unfits one for slavery. And so on the one hand, it's a part of our faith tradition. It's biblical. On the other hand, it's also a part of our Black faith tradition. That's why Henry Mitchell, in his wonderful book, Black Church Beginnings, he puts it like this. He said that during enslavement, every Black preacher made it her or his business to transform their pulpits into platforms for what? Abolition. That meant that I'm not going to have a church and preach about something in here that ain't got nothing to do with what our people are dealing with out there. And so it's in our spiritual DNA to do this. And so when you talk about the birth of Black colleges, most Black colleges were born in the basements of Black churches. And so when you talk about economics, let's go there. The first insurance company was the result of what was produced by Black churches, by what we called societies, because we could not get insurance from the white insurance companies. And so Black churches said, well, let's pool our resources and use that as an insurance company. And so we created societies. That is the history of the Black church. The Black church has always done this. Somehow we got away from it. But my thing is, let's get back to not only what the Bible says the church originally began doing, more than making disciples. And yes, we do that. The Bible says, as we make disciples, let's not forget what Jesus said his mission was in Luke chapter 4, to preach good news to the poor. And if you preach good news to the poor, that is either philanthropy or public policy. Set the captives free, heal those who are broken, open the eyes of those who are blind, proclaim the year, here it is, of Jubilee, which is the year of economic justice, economic reparations. That's Jesus. Now, if you ain't with Jesus, then I understand. But I get it. There's white Jesus and there's the right Jesus.
My God, that's just, it's so much lost history for so many people. And I appreciate you sharing that, weaving in that history, because our Black churches need to know this. They need to know that this is part of our history. Now, I know again that you don't brag on yourself, but you'll brag on your church. And I just wanted you to be able to share, as you've gone through this year and experienced this commemoration, as well as this catalyst of trying to live forward into the legacy of Black Wall Street. What has Friendship West seen happen? How's the response been there in Dallas and across the nation to trying to do this work of commemoration, as well as an initiative and really trying to start a revolution of supporting Black businesses in this way?
Yeah. And I thank you for that question. It's been on several levels. The first level has been a raising of consciousness, because the sad thing is there is just a lack of awareness that we've even had this in our DNA, that we had a thriving business community in Tulsa, Oklahoma, only to discover that we also had it in Dallas. We also had it in other pockets around the country, because again, segregation said, you ain't welcome here. And so what we did, okay, well, we don't need your table when we have our own table, and we're going to make our table so delicious, you're going to want to come to our table anyway, or you're going to get jealous and do what they did in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So the first thing that has taken place is there's been this raising of consciousness, like, wow, we've done that. And so once you raise consciousness, all of a sudden, there's this Marcus Garvey quote: what Africans have done, Africans can do. So we know we've done it. Now that we know we've done it, okay, how can we do it right now? What can we do right now? And that is why, again, I'm so proud of Pastor Danielle Ayers and Abney Jewel Haynes, because they said, well, here is a practical vehicle for doing it right now. And so it's been wonderful. to, hear people say, okay, I bought a new car and I got it financed through the Black business known as Faith Cooperative Federal Credit Union at Friendship West Baptist Church.
Mm.
And I'm talking about me right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I got a new car during this time. And my thing was, no, I'm not going to Chase. I'm not going to B of A. I'm
Mm.
going to Friendship West. And I'm not the only one who's done that.
Mm.
It's been wonderful because, again, when you raise consciousness, you also provide a vehicle. One of the things that has taken place around the country is we have watched other people, and I won't specifically call them out, but other people who have taken over the Black hair care industry. Now, they don't hire us, and yet they get our money. And
Mm.
so a lot of us don't know there are still Black owned businesses who you can get your weaves from. I got this bald head, and so I don't have to go to Walgreens or store that other folk own. We got Black owned businesses that specialize in hair care, that specialize in products that we need, not to mention the great restaurants we have, the bakeries that we have. And
Mm.
so, the beautiful thing is I'm watching Black businesses that would have, suffered or gone out of business during COVID. Instead, they're thriving now
Mm.
because of the consciousness that we are trying to raise. And so I'm just super excited that, COVID has been hard on a lot of us, but at the same time, whatever else I know about Black people are like, we've been living with a pandemic since we got here. We
Mm.
live with not just COVID-19, COVID-16, 19. And so
Mm.
we have always known how to be creative. Even when we didn't have a lot of resources, we knew how to be resourceful. And so
Yeah.
Black businesses are doing that during this time. So a lot of folk crying, they're going out of business, not Black folk. Black folk are saying, let's use our resourcefulness. And then with a church like Friendship West saying, hey, let's drive people to Black businesses. Again, that turns the money over in our community.
I love it. Last question, and this is really just about your ministry and the work that you've done. So many young people are watching our platforms, are paying attention to what we're doing and trying to figure out how can we have impact and still remain faithful to the prophetic call that God has for us and to our roots. Can you give a little advice? How can a young person who is seeing what's going on in the world, wanting success as it's named, wanting to be impactful is another way to think about it, and still wants to remain faithful? What advice would you give to the young adults out there?
Well, I would just say never divorce the two. To be faithful in the truest sense is to be impactful.
Mm.
Because when I'm faithful to my God, faithful to my calling, when I'm faithful, inevitably, I'm going to be impactful. Why? Because my faith is going to form and inform my sense of integrity, my sense of mission, my sense of calling. And once I know why I am here, then that gives me the passion in light of that purpose to what? To profit, as it were, but I profit with a strong sense of my profit just ain't about me. It's about making an impact in the community. And that's so biblical. I read something recently by Claus Westerman, who's a brilliant biblical scholar. He says the concept of blessing in the original Hebrew was both internal and external, in that when I am truly blessed, the blessing does not stop at me, but the blessing gets through me into the community around me. So I'm making an impact in the community because I am blessed. And that's the
Mm.
good news right there. And that is, you really ain't blessed if your blessing stops at you. If your blessing is only about you and does not get through you into the community around you, that blessing can become a curse. And when it becomes a curse, it's simply like, okay, I got a king size bed, but I can't sleep at night. I have
Mm,
a nice car to drive, but I'm confused about what's driving me. And so when you are blessed, I mean, when you are faithful, inevitably you become impactful. And so my thing is just make sure you don't engage in that Eurocentric concept of
mhm.
faith, which basically divorces the spiritual from the social, public policy from private piety. Don't do that. You bring those together. And when you bring those together in our rich African tradition, the good news is as you bring it together, you are blessed, you are a blessing, you are faithful to be impactful.
I love it. Thank you so much for this time, Dr. Haynes, and being able to share about the 100 Days of Buying Black initiative. And I just hope that we're inspired, as you said, to carry this forward. Let us not stop at 100 days. Let's certainly do it now, but roll it to create economic systems that bring true blessing that doesn't stop with us, but goes out into the community. I love that. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate you.